poor girl, an impossible task, a terrible bargain, and in the end only a name can save her. We think of Rumpelstiltskin as a children's tale, a strange little man who spins straw into gold. But hidden beneath the layers of that bedtime story is a secret far older than the Brothers Grimm, older than castles and cathedrals, older even than writing itself. Once you hear it, you may never look at this tale the same way again. Before we uncover what is buried beneath it, let us begin with the version most of us know, the one written down in 1812 by Jacob and Wilhelm Grimm. Listen closely, because hidden inside this short, strange little story are echoes of something far more ancient. Once there was a poor miller who wished to impress the king, and so he told a lie. He claimed his daughter could spin straw into gold. The king, greedy for wealth, had the girl brought to his castle. He shut her into a room filled with straw and demanded she prove it by morning or die. The girl was terrified. She had no idea how to spin straw into anything, let alone gold. She wept. And then, just before midnight, the door creaked open. A strange little man stepped inside. He offered to help, but only for a price. First her necklace, then her ring. Each night the straw was spun into shining gold, and each morning the king demanded more. On the third night, with nothing left to give, the little man made a terrible bargain. He would help her one last time in exchange for her firstborn child. Trapped and desperate, she agreed. By morning, the straw had turned to gold once more. The king was so pleased he took her as queen. A year passed. She bore a beautiful child and forgot all about the bargain until one night the little man returned. He had come to collect. The queen was horrified. She offered him wealth, land, anything he desired, but the little man only shook his head. Something living, he told her, is dearer to me than all the treasures of the world, and yet perhaps moved by her sorrow, he made her one final offer. If she could guess his name within 3 days, she could keep the child. She tried every name she knew. She sent messengers across the land in search of more, but no matter what she guessed, the answer was always wrong, until the third day, when one of her messengers returned with a strange story. Deep in the woods, beyond the fox's den, he had seen a fire and a tiny figure dancing around it, singing, "Today I bake, tomorrow I brew. The day after, I'll fetch the queen's child too. It's good that no one knows, Rumpelstiltskin is my name." That night, when the little man came again, the queen spoke the name, Rumpelstiltskin. He froze, his eyes widened. He shrieked, "Who told you? Who told you?" and stamped his foot so hard that he sank into the earth. In some versions, he tore himself clean in two. This is the version the Grimms set down in their Kinder und Hausmärchen, their children's and household tales. But contrary to popular belief, the brothers Grimm did not write fairy tales. They were collectors of folklore, stories passed down by word of mouth across generations. Rumpelstiltskin was only one of many. The Grimms were among the first to commit these tales to paper, preserving them before they vanished. And Jacob Grimm firmly believed that many of them were far older than people realized. Ancient, in fact, handed down from a time before history. It turns out he may have been right. In 2016, 2 researchers, Sarah Graça da Silva, a folklorist from the New University of Lisbon, and Jamshid Tirani, an anthropologist at Durham University, published a study in the Journal Royal Society Open Science. They borrowed a method from evolutionary biology. They treated folktales like living organisms, tracing how their motifs branched, mutated, and spread across populations. By comparing thousands of tales across the Indo-European world, they built what amounted to a family tree of folklore. What they found was remarkable. The tale we know as Rumpelstiltskin belongs to a wider story category that folklorists call O2500, the name of the supernatural helper, and its roots, the study suggested, reach back over 4,000 years into the Bronze Age. That does not mean this exact version is from the Bronze Age. It means that the bones of the story, the impossible task, the magical helper, the secret name recur again and again across cultures and across millennia. Different names, different settings, always the same skeleton. In England, the helper is called Tom Tit Tot. In Scotland, Whuppity Story. In Iceland, Gillatrut. In Austria, Kruzamugili. In the Arabic world, Joadane. The names change, the textures change, the punishments change. But the pattern holds. So why does this pattern echo across so many cultures? And what exactly are we remembering? Begin with the act of spinning itself. In folklore, spinning is everywhere. Sleeping Beauty pricks her finger on a spindle. The miller's daughter spins straw into gold. But to the ancients, spinning was not just domestic work. It was cosmic. In Greek mythology, the 3 fates, the Moirai spun the thread of every human life. Clotho drew it out, Lachesis measured it, and Atropos cut it. The length of your days, the moment of your final breath, all of it was thought to be spun, measured, and severed by these 3 sisters. It was not just the Greeks. In Norse mythology, the Norns sat at the roots of Yggdrasil, the world tree, spinning the fates of gods and men alike. In the Vedic tradition of ancient India, the very fabric of reality was described as a vast woven tapestry, golden threads stretched across the cosmos, binding all things together. Thread was not just a metaphor for life, it was life. And gold. Gold meant more than wealth. It stood for divinity, for purity, for the incorruptible, and so for immortality. Spinning straw into gold, then, is not a parlor trick. It is the reshaping of the mundane into the divine. In later centuries, this idea took on a new name: alchemy, the mystical art of turning base matter into something higher. We tend to picture alchemy as the medieval cliché, bearded men hunched in smoky laboratories, trying to turn lead into gold. But older than that is the idea of alchemy as a spiritual discipline, a transformation not just of metal, but of the soul, of fate, of the very nature of reality. Seen through that lens, Rumpelstiltskin is not simply spinning thread. He is performing cosmic work. Some have argued that stories like this are not just metaphors but distorted memories, echoes of a time when such knowledge was real and feared. But where would that knowledge have come from in the first place? And why, in so many versions of the tale, does it come at such a terrible cost? Recall that O2 500 may go back 4,000 years. That places its origins in the Bronze Age, the era when humanity first learned to take two ordinary metals, copper and tin, and fuse them in fire into something new, bronze. Imagine being a villager in that age. One day a stranger arrives, cloaked in soot, eyes gleaming, with metal in his hands. A blade that cuts through stone, a tool shapes the world. To you, he is not quite a man, he is a god. The ability to pull metal from rock and reforge it in fire was seen as a supernatural act. Those who held that knowledge, the smiths, the metalworkers, were both revered and feared. They were treated as keepers of a secret too powerful to belong entirely to humanity. And here is where it grows stranger still, because many ancient cultures did not claim to have discovered metalwork at all. They claimed it had been given to them. In the Book of Enoch, a text once considered scripture in some early Christian and Jewish communities, we read of the Watchers, divine beings, also called Grigori, who descended from the heavens and taught humanity forbidden arts. Among the teachings of one of them, Azazel, were the secrets of metallurgy, the forging of swords, the casting of ornaments. In Genesis itself, we meet Tubal-Cain, called an instructor of every artificer in bronze and iron. The theme repeats across the ancient world. In the Canaanite city of Ugarit, the smith god Kotharwakases built palaces for Baal and forged the magical weapons that defeated the sea god Yam. Among the Hittites, Hasameli was the patron of metalworkers, said to hide his craftsmen from view. The Norse remembered dwarves crafting Thor's hammer Mjolnir in caverns beneath the mountains. The Slavic people spoke of Svarog, the god of fire and creation. The Greeks gave the role to Hephaestus, the lame smith of the gods, born ugly and cast from Olympus, who forged Achilles' armor in the heart of a volcano. In Germanic legend, Wayland the smith was a king of the elves, made captive for his craft. The figures are always the same type: elusive, powerful, never fully human. They live in mountains, in caves, in forges beneath the earth. They speak strange tongues. They vanish as mysteriously as they came, just like our spinning little man. But what does Rumpelstiltskin actually want? Not gold, not a kingdom, a child. In every version of this story, he never quite explains why. Only once does he offer a clue: something living is dearer to me than all the treasures of the world. We are never told why he wants the child, and perhaps that is the point. It is possible the original meaning was darker than later versions could bear, and so the reason was left unspoken, softened over time for little ears. Because in the ancient world, offering the firstborn child to the gods was the ultimate gift and the ultimate price. To us today, the idea is unthinkable. But in the world that produced these stories, sacrifice was not always about cruelty. It was about offering up what was most precious in exchange for something divine. In the Hebrew Bible, God tests Abraham by demanding the sacrifice of his son Isaac, and then, at the last moment, stops his hand. In the Levant and at Punic sites like Carthage, archaeologists have uncovered burial precincts known as tophets, filled with the cremated remains of infants. Most scholars interpret these as the physical residue of child sacrifice, offerings to gods such as Baal-Hamon and the figure remembered in the Hebrew Bible as Moloch. The interpretation remains debated, but the literary memory is clear: when people sought divine help, real, impossible help, the cost was often the same: a child, which raises a stranger question still. Rumpelstiltskin is not killed. He is not banished by magic, not driven off by sword or holy symbol. He is defeated by something else entirely, by having his name spoken aloud. This may be the most ancient layer of the tale of all, the belief that names hold power. In ancient Egypt, the pharaoh, considered divine, had not just a birth name, but a secret name, a true name, called the Ren, that was bound to his soul. This hidden name had to be carved into tombs, temples, and sacred texts, because without it the pharaoh would cease to exist in the afterlife, not merely forgotten, but erased from eternity itself. To strike a name from a monument, what Egyptologists call donatio memoriae, was to undo a person at the level of being. In Jewish tradition, the divine name itself, the Tetragrammaton Eisu, was so sacred that it was not spoken aloud. In Kabbalistic mysticism, the names of God are not labels. They are believed to hold the essence of creation, too potent to be uttered carelessly. In Islamic tradition, the Asma al-Husna, the 99 beautiful names of Allah, function as keys to the divine attributes, each name a window onto a facet of the infinite. And in the Hebrew Bible, Solomon is portrayed as the wise and wealthy son of David, king of ancient Israel in the 10th century BC. He builds the first temple in Jerusalem, said to house the Ark of the Covenant. But in later mystical texts, his story takes a darker turn. One of these writings, a pseudepigraphical work known as the Testament of Solomon, tells us something different. It claims Solomon was given a magical ring engraved with a divine seal, a ring that granted him power over demons. One by one he summons them. To each, he asks the same single question, "What is your name?" Because once Solomon knows it, he controls them. He commands them to haul stones, to build the temple, to bring gold, to do his bidding. In ancient belief, a name was not just a label. It was a code, a key, a hidden map of a being's nature, their origin, their power, their weakness. To speak a true name was to unlock something. It was, in a sense, like accessing the source code of the soul, a spiritual blueprint that gave you mastery over the being it described. So when the girl in our story learns Rumpelstiltskin's name, not just any name, but perhaps his true name, she is not merely speaking a word. She is breaking the spell. She is cracking the code. She is doing what Solomon did, of course. The names in these stories have changed across centuries. Rumpelstiltskin itself is a piece of German wordplay. In the original Rumpelstiltskin, Rumpel means a rattling or clattering noise. Stils refers to a stilt or post, and the suffix chen makes it small. A little rattle post, a clattering goblin. The name is almost mechanical. Some have suggested it refers to the way he moves, or to the sound of his work at the wheel. Across dozens of cultures and variations, one thing stays the same. The helper's name is always strange, alien, not quite of this world. That is more than a fairy tale. It may be the echo of something we once believed, that gods, spirits, and supernatural beings spoke a different kind of language, a sacred tongue, a divine speech. In ancient Indo-European tradition, the gods do not speak the way we do. They sing, they chant. Their words follow rhythms and patterns, riddles that humans cannot fully grasp, which is suggestive, because in almost every version of the Rumpelstiltskin tale, the helper's secret name is revealed in the same way, through a riddle, a chant, a song around a fire, and this divine speech was believed to hold enormous power. Consider the opening of Genesis. How does God create the world? He speaks, "Let there be light," and there was light. No chisels, no fire, no tools. Speech, not action, becomes the instrument of creation. It is not just the Bible. In Egyptian theology, the god Ptah of Memphis creates the world not by shaping it, but by speaking it into being, conceiving it in his heart and bringing it forth with his tongue. In these traditions, language is not just communication. It is a power source, a way to bend reality at its foundations. So what then was Rumpelstiltskin? A trickster, a demon, a forgotten god, a folk memory of one of the first metalworkers, the firebringers, the keepers of secrets, the beings who offered help for a terrible price. We think of Rumpelstiltskin as a fairy tale for children, but his strange inhuman name, his power to spin gold, his demand for the firstborn, none of these are simply fantasy. They echo real beliefs from the ancient world, of gods who worked in fire, of beings who spoke in riddles, of rituals and secret names that could bind the supernatural. So perhaps this tale is not fiction at all, but a memory, a distorted echo of a time when such beings were thought to walk among us. And perhaps in some quiet corner of the imagination they still do.